Just talking about the Kibler void. See, we're gonna be watching it together. I haven't seen this yet, and I was just kind of giving my take on what I think he's going to talk about. And what I think he's going to talk about is that there's too much combo in the game. The board doesn't really feel that good, and he's probably going to point out the same thing that I did, where like I feel like he's going to bring up how this expansion is like, brickwork, kind of like what I did. I don't think Kibler's a fool. He's gonna be like, we're in the tail end of a meta or the tail end of an expansion and a rotation. This is like the first thing that needed to happen in order to do what they want to in the next year. Too much card draw? Okay, I think you're halfway there. I don't think there's too much card draw. I think there's too much tutoring in Hearthstone. Card draw is fine, but when you have specific card draw that always draw, like spells, dude. Drawing spells, it's so good right now. Kibler probably loves this meta. Nothing needs to be changed. Well, let's find out.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to, let's say, the state of Hearthstone. It's been a while since I've done a sort of video with my thoughts on the metagame, and this is a little bit more than that. This is sort of my thoughts
2 or 3
on
months,
like,
I think.
where Hearthstone has been, and seems to be
Continue to be going.
And spoiler alert, I think it's the wrong place and the wrong direction.
Called it.
Maybe not the wrong direction, but a lot of decisions
a direction he does not enjoy.
In the recent past, and even more so in the sort of slightly more distant past, have really made me less happy with how things are going in the world of Hearthstone, and a little bit less confident that they will be heading in the right direction. Before I really get into all of that,
he hates Oracle.
I do want to say that I'm going to be taking a extended break from streaming, which may translate into less content on YouTube, because I don't have a big bank of stuff sort of saved up to post. But that is not related to my current thoughts on Hearthstone. I sort of already decided that I was going to take a extended break from streaming. Which is going to be about a month that I'm going to be away from at least my normal scheduled streaming, both for sort of the holidays and just generally to actually take a break from things, which is the first time I've taken more than like a week off or so from streaming since I started like doing it more or less full time 10 years ago. So,
brother, I feel that. The last time that I took an entire week off. The last time that I took an entire week off, I think, was when I went on vacation to Disney last year for Christmas. It's fucking rough being a content creator, man. It's just, you gotta constantly be active, dude. The moment you take, like, Kibler is probably gonna take a break for a month, and I would not be surprised if at least his viewership on Twitch goes down, like, at least 20%. Like, when you don't capture people every single day and you're not part of their daily routine, they find someone else to be part of that daily routine. It's hard to make someone change their daily routine unless you are literally not online.
That is not, me rage quitting Hearthstone or anything like that. That is me
already
taking a planned break from streaming. So don't read
spend
too
time
much
with his
more
dogs.
into that than there is. But anyway, let's talk about it. The state of Hearthstone. In short, it ain't good.
Uh-oh.
There was obviously a recent patch that nerfed some sort of standout problem cards in the current metagame. And if you are someone who has watched my stream or has watched, some of the highlights that show up on YouTube, you will probably have noticed that I have been, for a while, basically complaining about Ethereal Oracle.
Yeah,
and how, it was bonkers to me.
React content. I mean, hey, man, I feel like I'm going to agree with a lot of you saying
insisting that, it obviously would be nerfed, and then it wasn't nerfed in this most recent...
I also saw the video right before I started streaming, and I'm like, shit, I really want to watch this. So I figured, why not kill 2 birds with 1 stone? We could get some people in here. We can watch the Kibler video as he looks at us so very menacingly. Look at how much this man hates Ethereal Oracle.
Insisting that, it obviously would be nerfed, and then it wasn't nerfed in this most recent balance update. And the only explanation that I can really come up with that you wouldn't nerf Ethereal Oracle in this particular update is that it is one of the few cards from the new set that is seeing a lot of play, and seeing success in high-level competitive decks. And while I can understand to some
It's also important to note that it is quite literally one of the only, like, one of only 3 to 5 cards from the new set that actually sees play at the highest ranks. Oracle's not the problem. If we nerf it, we literally have 0. Ethereal, okay. Oracle needs to be draw 2, in my opinion. I think the tutoring of spells is a little bit ridiculous. I want it to be a good cycle card, but I don't want it to be this overpowered tutor card. Draw 2 is infinitely better than draw 2 spells.
To some extent, that argument.
That's the only change I want.
Sort of sentiment surrounding the Great Dark Beyond as it's a bad set. A lot of people saying, oh, you know, didn't impact the metagame, it's a bad set, blah, blah, blah. And I think the reality is, I think Great Dark Beyond is a great set.
100%.
In the sort of gameplay that it tries to encourage and the sort of fun style of you know, building.
It feels like classic Hearthstone cards.
I think that it aims to do. But the problem is that the sets before it don't do that.
Also,
that many of the sets for so long in Hearthstone have not been about that you can't just shoehorn that in with one set at the end of an expansion cycle, you know, and actually have the impact that I would hope that you know, it might be able to have. But it's not realistic, right? It's not realistic to try to shift everything that Hearthstone has, like, kind of become over the past few years, and, you know, kind of revert it to something which is like, we're
delete the card. Let's go that far.
Building up the thing.
Making it draw 2 doesn't delete the card, but if you do get rid of the spell damage, then it's like, what's the point? Like, spell damage is only relevant if it tutors spells. Just get rid of the spell tutor. You could still make it a decent spell damage card, so that way, like, Shaman and whatnot could use, like, Molted Magma or some kind of AoE or like, you know, like Chalice or whatever with it. I'm perfectly fine with that. The problem is when Oracle literally tutors lethal and also helps with lethal.
Things, minion combat, etc. And those of you who have watched my stream and have watched many of my highlights over the years may, you know, recognize that obviously I am someone who is not a big fan of, particularly in Hearthstone, one-turn kill style combo decks. Essentially decks that, you know...
Oh, look at me, Kibler, I'm sorry.
...lead to Twitch chat to spam the fun and interactive meme. And the reason for that, some people will say in the comments, is like, you like to play control decks, blah, blah, blah. You just want to win more with your control decks, which isn't the case at all. The reality is, and I've talked about this a lot relating to Magic, and people ask why I like to play like creature decks in Magic and, you know, mid-range decks in Magic, and the reason isn't just like I like attacking with big creatures. I do, it's fun, but it's that creatures in Magic and also minions in Hearthstone are the only game-level interaction that exists. Which is to say, the only cards that have rules for which you interact with your opponent are creatures in Magic and minions in Hearthstone, right? Every other card in the game only interacts if it tells you it does explicitly, right? Interaction is creature combat, minion combat. Fundamental.
So he's pretty much saying that what he enjoys from the game is interactivity, and that interactivity is by playing a minion and then it having some sort of direction that it needs to go. Therefore, this thing, it needs to go face, because it's a face card. You have this card that's being defensive. It encourages your opponent to have to trade into a taunt. Lifesteal is sustained. These are all forms of interaction. He's 100% correct.
Right? And I feel like, you know, Hearthstone has moved away from that being the focus of the game to an extent that is to its vast detriment over the past couple of years. Some of that is, you know, due to the rise of, like, one-turn kill combo style decks. But a lot of that is also that it is just too easy to kill minions without using your own minions in a lot of cases, right? Like,
also true.
It's not just OTK decks are too good. It is control decks are too good. There are too many good ways to just sweep the board over and over. Like, you know, look at, like, Control Warrior. There's a Control Warrior deck right now in Hearthstone Standard that is just about, like, infinitely playing the Ceaseless Expanse. And that isn't really something that leads to, you know, minion combat. It just leads to everything dying all the time.
And honestly, I kind of agree with this, because, like, the thing that really sucks about infinite decks in general, because it's not just warrior, it's also rogue, it's hunter. Now people are playing infinite hunter decks, and I don't necessarily have a problem with this style of deck, but like the biggest issue, especially with like warrior, is that it's only win condition for so long, for like this last year of Hearthstone, has essentially been gain armor, your opponent concedes, clear the board, your opponent concedes, or somehow play Odin or Boom Boss and interact with your opponent's deck or hit them on the face with armor. So it's like the biggest issue is not necessarily that these styles exist, it's that it's the only style that's been really good for the past like 2 years now. So it's like the biggest issue with Warrior is that it's felt the same. Not necessarily that it's doing what it's doing, but it's felt the same for so long. Yeah, Control Warrior was always like this, but now it has a lot more gas behind it. It's not why OTK decks should exist, though, to kill those control decks. Well, I mean, that is true, but the biggest issue is that mid-range decks and aggro decks have almost no way of beating control anymore. Like, because of how plenty removal is, because of how easy it is to gain armor. Like, dude, for example, Arcanite Defense Crystal is, like, a perfect example of this, where, like, gaining 6 armor for 1 death rattle, and then you're literally encouraged to make several copies of it. Warrior is trash right now? No, I don't think that Warrior is trash right now. At top legend level, you can make Control Warrior work, but the issue is that you can only make one style of Warrior work. The rest of Warrior is trash. Like, that's the thing that kind of sucks. Like, Draenei Warrior sucks, Aggro Warrior sucks, freaking Enrage Warrior is not a thing anymore. Every other style of warrior deck is just completely show us that. I don't need to show you. It's already there. Like, hell, brother, if I go to HS Guru, I go to meta relevant decks, I go to standard, I go to warrior, I go to top 1K, there's still a warrior deck seeing play. Granted, it's a 43%, but this is not an easy deck to play. The fact that this deck even exists and can win at top legend proves that warrior can be good, but it's not necessarily favored into the meta. This deck is good because if you were to play this deck at anything other than the top ranks in the game, it would have above a 50%. So the fact that this is a 43% at top legend is at... Okay, so let's actually look at Diamond through legend. Let's take a look. Ooh, Hydration Warrior, 67%, 67%, but it's only 60 games, brother. This is why you don't care about the 43% win rate. You care about where it's seeing play, how it's seeing play, and how effectively it is working at certain ranks. Warrior is good, Odin Warrior is good, but if you compare everything to top 1000 legend, nothing is good other than 5 decks. So you can't be thinking like that, brother. That's not. You are thinking about the 1% of Hearthstone players and their opinion. You need to think about the entire server. Warrior. Okay, okay, bro. If you're still saying Warrior is trash, you missed my point. Warrior is trash at top legend. Warrior at the rest of the ranks is not trash. There are optimal and unoptimal decks. Warrior might be unoptimal at top legend, but if you were to play at, let's say, bronze, silver, or gold, if you were to play that deck and play it competently, you will shit on people. That's not even up for conversation.
It isn't to say that that sort of thing existing in some capacity isn't okay, right? That thing is actually, I think that there being a like deck that is focused on, I'm going to do this thing over and over and create a loop, that's okay, as long as there's ways to interact with it. And as long as that's not just like the primary thing that
technically
that
there's
is going
right, you can interact with
and because of decks that are aiming to, you know, wipe the board repeatedly very easily all the time, you end up pushing people toward decks that are capable of killing you in a single turn. And you know, I got into this, and as I said to the people who are watching me streaming this, I'm doing this live. Not all of my thoughts on this have been fully formed. I'm kind of doing this in a little bit of a stream of consciousness fashion. But overall, right, like, I feel like the best card
you would shit on people with any refined deck by that criteria?
Yeah. Ethereal.
Because that's how optimized and unoptimized decks work. Like, okay. Every single deck isn't optimal in Hearthstone, even at top legend. So it's just like, it says a lot when a deck completely destroys unoptimal decks and when you have like a 0% chance against them. That still means that the deck is good. It's doing its job. So it's like, again, like, even though any refined deck might be good at lower or might be good at like the bronze ranks and stuff like that, like, it's still a refined deck.
Oracle really points
and there are
to
weaknesses that some decks have, but if you play control at that rank, you're
right,
just going to shit on everything.
That you just have more things that kind of push you in that direction, rather than pushing you in the direction of, you know, the sort
AoE's
of
mainly a warrior
gameplay
problem?
that the Great Dark Beyond wants.
I think AoE is only a problem in
things
warrior.
like starships, right, or Draenei. You know, things that are like, I am going to play this minion, which sets up a plan of future minions, which I can then act upon over the course of the game. And because these involve minions, there's a lot of back and forth going on. Whereas,
and because it costs because you have to play minions, you have to stagger your game plan. Like, there is the okay, it's stuck game plan, and then there's the oh shit, it got removed by another minion on the field. What do I do now? That's where the interactivity starts to shine. And we really had this when, like, Death Rattle minions, for example, with like Piloted Shredder, where, like, you know, you would have a minion that would stuck around, you would want to trade it so that way you could somehow outvalue your opponent on the board. I feel like that is really missing right now. The closest thing that we have to that is almost like Dreadhound Handler, and that card's busted, but that's because it mostly has Rush. So it's like, I feel like there should be more tools with minions that incentivize for the board, and that's why I love Starship so much, because that's been missing for quite some time.
The best card being Ethereal Oracle is like, hey, not only like do you want to play this with spells, but you specifically want to play it with cheap spells, so you have lots of ways to spell burst this and then play those afterwards, and you also want to play with burn spells to give you spell damage. I do think, by the way, that Ethereal Oracle being a card that sees play in decks whose only spell damage outlet is Snake Oil for Miracle Salesman. Look it up. There's a bunch of them, actually.
Wait. Say that again. What?
Card that sees... I think, by the way, that Ethereal Oracle being a card that sees play in decks whose only spell damage outlet is Snake Oil for Miracle Salesman. Look it up. There's a bunch of them, actually.
Okay, so he's talking about how there are decks that don't even use Ethereal Oracle for the actual spell damage. They're just using it for the draw spells from the deck. There is no spell damage other than the Snake Oil that you would get from the Miracle Salesman. I don't think it's necessarily an irrelevant point, but what he's trying to say is that the point of the card is not for spell damage. The point of the card is for tutoring spells from your deck, very specific card draw. And this is literally what I said before I even watched this video, where I'm like, I literally said that the tutoring of spells from Oracle is the problem. If it was draw 2, it wouldn't nearly be as good. So yeah, yo, what's going on, Guitar? Merry Christmas to you, man. Yeah, we're checking out Kibler's opinion on the game, because I think I might agree with almost everything he has to say here. I haven't seen this entire video yet.
Is really indicative of just how ridiculously powerful this card's effect is, right? Like, just draw 2 cards, you know, from casting a spell, because the game
draw 2 spells, tutor 2 spells. It's not draw 2.
Let me get into this a little bit.
It's tutor 2.
It's just such a powerful effect to, you know, just draw 2 cards for effectively nothing, as long as you're you know, playing a spell that's doing something on the board.
Can you imagine Snake Oil still being 0, by the way?
Specifically, like, the game engine, right? Like, of being a game that is built around mana, encourages you to play things that are less expensive, because it is easier to play out your cards if you have cards that are cheap. That's just naturally, like, if you look at, like, the decks that are successful over the course of Hearthstone's history, a huge percentage of them are decks that just have a ton of cheap stuff. You know, i.e. rogue decks. You know, whether they're combo decks or, like, you know, pressure, tempo-oriented rogue decks. Bunch of cheap stuff. Historically has been one of the ways you've had to be successful in Hearthstone. And having the best card in your new set be a card that has nothing to do with the primary themes that the set is focusing on.
0 of the themes are good in this expansion.
This board-based gameplay and building up to things, but instead being a card that incentivizes you playing a bunch of cheap stuff that is already good based on just the way that the game engine works, right? It's just more pressure to do the thing that's already good, and also encourages you to play things that are planning to kill your opponent in a single turn, because, you know, you can just draw your spells and play your cheap spells and, like, have spell damage to make those things more dangerous. Is just, it's just
trying to find a place to pause.
This is the point that we're at, and that in the, even after release, when it is very clear that this is happening with Ethereal Oracle, that it is not one of the targets chosen for nerfs in this particular patch.
Okay, so very, very short explanation of what he was just saying there. Ethereal Oracle invalidates the cards that we got from this expansion almost completely and entirely, because not only did it buff, you want old archetypes to be good, but what happened here is that Ethereal Oracle was really the only good card from this set because it bolstered other archetypes that were already completely fine by themselves, and now they're like, I don't want to say completely overtuned, but like compared to the new cards and the new like decks that are possible from the Great Dark Beyond, yeah, Ethereal Oracle completely overshadows every single one of them because these decks that were already like super good are now super, super good, and Starship decks are just good. Good can't compare to super, super good. So it's just one of those things to where Draenei's are bad, Starships are decent, but not terrible, but not insanely good. There was all of the Exarch cards that really don't even see that play. There was like Arcane Druid that's not even that really good anymore. So it's just like there's all of these archetypes that they try to support that are just completely flatlining. Don't even get me started on how bad Draenei decks are in general. But it's just like we have all of these decks that are not performing well, and Oracle is not only performing better than all of them, it's actively putting other archetypes into the grave. Like, Ethereal Oracle is just giving consistent decks even more consistency in the form of damage as well as the drawing from your deck. I cannot stress how important the drawing 2 spells really is. The dev should make better cards, no. It's not, okay, so we've already explained that, yes, these cards are bad, but they're trying to slow down the power level, and if all you're going to do is just keep making good card after good card after broken card after broken card after broken card, you're gonna hit a point. And we finally hit that point. I feel like Perils in Paradise was that point that we hit. Big Spell Mage was the point that we hit. Printing bad cards makes a bad expansion, not Oracle being good. Okay, so I agree, but what we are seeing right now is that Hearthstone has been going in this trajectory where all cards just keep getting powerful and powerful and powerful and powerful. They finally hit a breaking point. They need to do something to reduce the power level in general of all of the cards. Does that mean making bad cards compared to what we've seen about a year or two ago? Kinda yes, kinda no. And this is the thing that's really annoying about bad or about bad cards, is that bad cards are just bad compared to the good cards. Is a 10 bad because it can't beat an ace? I don't agree with that. It's one of those things where you have different cards that are used for different circumstances, but when you go up against a deck that has nothing but aces, and you're a deck that has a lot of 10s in it, you just have no way of beating the aces. So it's an issue of consistency. It's not an issue of having, a lot of good cards and a lot of bad cards. You have suit cards, or I'm sorry, you have face cards that are becoming aces essentially, and all of the regular numbered cards just can't compete anymore. There's too big of a power gap now. Oracle is not powerful. It increases consistency and allows you to have more versatility for the spells that you run. By that no means is a Dungar style or Skyla. Just because you play a Dungar doesn't mean that a card is powerful, dude. Azure Drake was literally the best card back in the day. It was the best card. Azure Drake was the best card. No fucking meme, dude. A win condition doesn't need... the card that kills you doesn't necessarily need to be the best card in the game. The best card in the game is the card that helps support your archetype the best. Again, Oracle made great decks even greater, and we have these new archetypes that already were going to struggle against these decks, and now they just have even more consistency behind it. Consistency is the most powerful thing in Hearthstone, not like an OTK or a certain amount of damage. Tutoring is the most powerful mechanic aside from Mana Cheat, in my opinion.
And,
people are failing to understand drawing 2 cards worth 3 mana. You can check the card, for example, you're getting a 2-3 with spell damage that also tutors. Yeah,
I feel like
insane.
There's a good push with a lot of the starships and things like that, going in a direction of hey, play to the board, build up stuff. And then there's Shaman with asteroids, which...
Sergio, you're 100% wrong. Oracle was only a top performer in Psycho Rogue. You say that you hate the card, and that's it. Saying Oracle overshadows the expansion is the biggest nonsense ever. Completely disagree, brother. Completely disagree, and here's how I can prove it to you. Dude, freaking Lanessa Paladin uses Oracle. There's so many. I can't even think of all the decks that use Oracle because there are just so many of them. So let's actually take a look. Because Mage, dude, every single deck right now is using Oracle. Lanessa Paladin, Buttons DK, Zarimi Priest is using Oracle in order to draw from its deck. Rainbow DK, Asteroid Shaman, Libram Paladin, Attack Demon Hunter. What else is there? Swarm Shaman was using Ethereal Oracle. Spell Damage Drew. There are so many decks, bro. It is literally in every single deck at this point because being able to draw 2 spells is just good when you can tutor what the spells are. If this was just a draw 2, it might still be decent and it might still see play, but you have so many things that are centered around this particular card. Oracle was not just good in Psycho Rogue. That's completely not true.
I feel like we've
check
just
the played
seen
win
this
rate of the card. Dude, this isn't about the played win rate. This has nothing to do about the played win rate of the card. It helps the deck do its thing. It is a consistent tutoring card. The win rate of the card is not important in this context. It is the context of there are no other cards from this expansion that are seeing play because all the decks really care about is doing what they've already been doing, and now they have a card that tutors specific cards that helps them continue doing what they were already doing. That's the issue with Oracle. The played win rate of the card is irrelevant when it's literally in like 60% of how many percent of decks actually is Oracle in? This is a fantastic question actually, because this will really put things into perspective. Let's see, cards. If I can click the right thing. Let's see. Oracle is literally in 36% of decks. That is the 3rd most common card in the entire expansion, behind Ziliax at 47%, Ceaseless Expanse at 43%, and then underneath it is Miracle Salesman and ETC. This card is seeing play everywhere. It passes Salesman, yeah, dude. And the played win rate of the card is, okay, played win rate, or deck win rate is 54%. Mulligan win rate is 51%, and drawn win rate is 55%. Not exactly the best of the best, but you have cards like, you have win conditions that it's trying to compete with, and that's why you can't just be like, well, what's the played win rate? If we look at the drawn win rate or the mulligan win rate, it's a completely different thing. But at mulligan win rate, let's see. I'm not seeing Oracle. Where is it? Oh god. Oh lord. But the stats are like this is just good in order to show us like how good the card is in general. It's seeing play in literally more than a third of decks. And most decks aren't even playing it for spell damage.
Or whatever. It's like, okay, you just have spell damage and card draw. And then you have spell damage and card draw on one card in Ethereal Oracle. This makes these sort
card
of things
seeing play is good. I'm not saying that Ethereal Oracle seeing play is a bad thing. What I'm saying is that if Ethereal Oracle is seeing play and almost all of the other cards in your expansion are not seeing play, there's a reason for it, and the reason is very simple. There's overshadowing expansions. This set was trying to make us go in a certain direction because it's thinking about the future of rotation. It's trying to slow down the game, and unfortunately, it feels bad if you want to play Hearthstone right now because it feels like we're essentially not going to be able to play the game as we want it to be until rotation happens. Okay, let me go back a little bit.
That are in the set, like, I feel like there's a good push with a lot of the starships and things like that going in a direction of like, hey, play to the board, build up stuff, and then there's like
we need more consistency, not less. Disagree. Consistency should come from minion combat, not from card draw. Having card draw is good, but having consistent card draw makes every game feel the same. That's why Ethereal Oracle and Lanessa Paladin feels really, really bad in my opinion, because the difference between Hi-Ho Silverwing, where you're specifically tutoring like a holy card, I'm okay with that. But then when you also have that on top of the fact that you have Ethereal Oracle, so after you draw the like 2 of your holy spells, you can probably get the other 2 even better. Exactly, it becomes draw simulator. I don't want Hearthstone to just be draw simulator where it's like, I drew the tutor card before you, congratulations, I won the game. This is exactly what Kibler's been talking about. We want the board to be the most important thing, and as of right now, tutoring and playing stuff from hand is clearly on top.
Like, hey, play to the board, build up stuff, and then there's like Shaman with Asteroids, which I feel like we've just seen this before so many times, like with Garrote Rogue or whatever. It's like, okay, you just have spell damage and card draw, and then you have spell damage and card draw on one card in Ethereal Oracle. This makes these sort of things so incredibly frustrating and powerful, and having no axis of interaction that exists against them, right? Like, it's weird to me that we have a world in which we have stuff like Asteroid / Incendious Shaman and no way to possibly interact with those along the lines of Steam Cleaner, right?
Yeah,
like,
rip
that
Steam
at least
Cleaner.
gives you the card level way to interact with them, which isn't nearly as satisfying as having a game level way of interacting with them, like these things being based on keeping a minion on the board or something.
It is really funny how Steam Cleaner saw no play, almost zero play, during its time when it was in Standard. And then the expansion, it leaves. It actually would have been a kind of decent card. Not gonna say it was gonna be like the savior against these decks, but people would have at least been gaslit into thinking, oh, if I just have my Steam Cleaner, I have a chance.
But again, that is so difficult in the current environment because of just the sheer power of so many of the removal effects and particularly board clear effects that work. So it's kind of this.
I didn't see play until Plex were there. Yeah, that's kind of true.
It's kind of this just like confluence of a bunch of things where I just feel like, you know, we're in, like, Hearthstone just isn't in a very good place right now. And I have had the experience multiple times over the past, let's say 6 months, maybe a year, where I've had the thought, you know, maybe Hearthstone just isn't for me anymore. And that sucks.
Dude, I've been thinking this past week. I don't wanna feel this way, but yeah, I mean, I've legitimately asked myself after closing Hearthstone, do I enjoy Hearthstone anymore? No, that's not a good feeling, bro. Stop being negative. Because he doesn't want to feel this way. That's not a good feeling. He wants to enjoy the game. He wants to be part of the community. He wants to actually, you know, stream and make content for the game. And when the game that you feel, the game that you play doesn't make you feel good for playing, that's a terrible feeling.
Why bother?
You should not be like, yay, he finally grew out of card games. Congratulations, he finally grew up. That's not how I roll at all. I don't like people that say that. That's kind of like saying that, oh, you finally grew out of your Yu-Gi-Oh phase. You finally sold your Yu-Gi-Oh cards because you decided to get a real job. Wow. Okay. You decided to sell out your passions in order to do whatever, in order to do, you know, another fucking like basic simple shit. Maybe okay. Kind of reaching a little bit with that. But what I don't like is when people feel like they have to move from their passions because the passion just isn't enjoyable because the direction has changed. That's not something you should ever celebrate. Change will happen. Okay, whatever, dude.
Right? Like,
if it's not fun, why bother?
It really, really sucks to feel like something that you have spent so much time playing and have enjoyed to such a great degree over a very long time has kind of diverged from what it is that you enjoy to such a point that you're like, I just don't want to play this anymore. And it's not like just
say that again. Say that fucking part again. Fucking say it again.
It really, really sucks to feel like something that you have spent so much time playing and have enjoyed to such a great degree over a very long time has kind of diverged from what it is that you enjoy to such a point that you're like, I just don't want to play this anymore.
It's like seeing like a friend in grade school and then they're in high school, and now you just don't want to hang out with them anymore. Or it's like seeing your child grow up, and then being like, God damn it, what have they done? They're into some stupid shit. It's just, it's some cost fallacy to a degree, but it's one of these things where it's literally just wanting to play the game. It sucks to spend all of this time into the game, and to have it, like, completely derail from what its original draw was, I guess, which was minion combat and hopefully like, having some sort of interactivity and being able to, like, you know, storm with minions and stuff like that. Just play one wild. Oh my god, why is that always the go-to that people say? It's not like wild's any better. Like what? Oh, okay, all right. So you want me to play wild? Oh, let's see what the best deck in wild is. Ooh, so if I go to the tier list, okay. So let's go to the tier list and let's make it wild. Let's see what the best deck is. Let's see, in top 1K legend. Oh, there's a deck called Hostage Mage. I'm gonna be held hostage if I play wild. That doesn't sound much better. Granted, I'm taking a look at top 1,000. I'm completely generalizing, but the point is it should not be Lamal just play another game mode. If I want to play standard, and if standard's not making me happy, it sucks. It's a feeling that sucks. It's like getting demon seeded in wild every other game. Maybe I should put it in perspective.
And it's not like just a matter of I don't want to stream this anymore. It's like, you know, there are lots of metagames in Hearthstone where, like, I have finished my stream, gone and eaten dinner, and then just fired up Hearthstone again to just play with new decks and try new things.
Honestly, yeah.
I am not doing that nowadays.
Honestly, dude, when I stop streaming Hearthstone, I don't launch up the game anymore. Like, there would be times where people would catch me playing Hearthstone after a stream, and some people on my friends list would like spectate me to see what I was playing and stuff like that. I'm really not doing that a lot anymore, because now when I lose, I'm like, the game is bullshit, instead of just being like, oh, okay, that was fine. I'll just queue up another game. Losses nowadays are just so infuriating, dude. And I cannot tell you how refreshing it is to see someone else say exactly what I'm thinking. Because it's so true. I don't feel like wanting to play the game as much as I used to. And I want to play with these cards, but playing these cards is like shooting myself in the face for my opponent and dealing 30 damage to myself. What makes a loss infuriating? The fact that I'm trying all this new stuff, and the new stuff is just completely overshadowed by OTKs, by spell damage combos, by consistent card draw from Ethereal Oracle. It feels like I have to conform into playing a very specific style of game, and I just don't want to play that style anymore. Case in point, Nature Shaman. A lot of you guys remember me from the Nature Shaman days, right? I don't want to play another game of that deck. I do not want to play another game of Nature Shaman. I know how it works. I know how that song and dance goes. And as soon as my opponent does like the one thing that would counter my deck, it automatically feels bad, because I knew from the very beginning that was what was probably going to happen. That was the only way that I could lose the game. And unfortunately, like, I'm just so burnt out on this style of being played, because I've been playing Nature Shaman for more than a year. I have over 1,000 games of Nature Shaman. I don't want to play another one. So, like, the issue is, I feel like I have to conform to the style of decks that I really don't want to be playing right now, because I want to try having fun with a different, a different type of archetype or something like that. But I am being forced into playing Swarm Shaman when that was unnerfed. But now that the patch has happened, people are automatically being conformed to playing Linessa Paladin, into playing another good deck. I can't think of the decks right now because I'm fucking ranting. But it's just like, it feels like people have to conform to a deck idea they really don't want to play if the goal is to win. And when you start playing a deck that you actually want to have fun with, and it literally can never win a game, dude, I don't care who you are. If you have a 20% win rate when you're actually trying to win with a deck, you're gonna get fucking frustrated.
That, and have not been doing that for a while. Like, prior to this patch, I took over a week off from streaming Hearthstone and was streaming Magic, because I just didn't enjoy the sort of gameplay that the set was encouraging, and that the metagame was encouraging. And I was hoping with the patch that would change. It did not change. I streamed for a couple of days, and a huge percentage of my games were not only against decks that were, utilizing Ethereal Oracle, which I thought was so obviously a card that should have been nerfed, but were specifically decks that were doing things that, were killing me in a single turn, or were killing me in a way that I had no meaningful way to interact with. And you can say, well, you need to play different decks. It's like, okay, but if you make the game such that you are either playing a hyper-aggressive deck that kills the opponent very quickly, or you are playing a combo deck, or you're playing a hyper-extreme control deck, you lose so much of what makes the game, for lack of better words, fun and interactive, right? Like, if you don't have the possibility to play any kind of, like, mid-range minion style of deck and be successful, I think that the game is in a bad place. And that's based on just the nature of what interactivity
Kibler,
means in Hearthstone, and where the game level interactivity comes from, which is from minions fighting minions, right? If you, have, like, a metagame in which stuff like mid-range Paladin
80% of the best decks like that. No, that's the problem. That's literally the problem. The meta becomes polarized. That's what happens. What we have is hyper aggro and hyper control with a bunch of armor and clearing every single turn. Like, one extreme all the way to the other. and you have all of the other decks in the middle that are just completely useless.
A reasonable thing to play, and you can say, Libram Paladin, does exist, and that I think is, one of the very few shining stars of the metagame, which is a weird thing to say.
And the funny thing about Libram Paladin is that it's really not a shining star unless you have double weapon. Like, one weapon is pretty decent. Like, if you have weapon into Libram of Faith, where you play all the 3/3s and stuff like that, that's a pretty good turn. But almost every other circumstance with that deck is, like, completely bad. Like, Libram Paladin, I don't even think it's necessarily a shining star of this meta by any standard. But it's like, think about all the other decks that actually utilize new cards. And do it well. Libram Paladin is like one of the only decks that I can think of that plays more than 5 new cards and has a decent win rate that's not just spamming armor.
But I feel like there's so much of the metagame that has happened over the past.
And Libram Paladin also plays Oracle.
That like it is at such extremes, right?
I didn't even think of that, but that's
This isn't a new thing. It isn't like this just happened. And I feel
we had this during Stormwind and Doom of the Tomb.
Right now, Hearthstone is in as bad a state in my mind as it was back in, like, for instance, Stormwind, right?
Yeah.
When like
yep. Stormwind, Baron's Priest, and for me in particular, Doom in the Tomb Shaman with Evolved Desert Hair. Literally some of the worst times to play Hearthstone. I did find a way to have fun in Stormwind. But I completely get why people thought it was a bad expansion. You either love that expansion or you hated its existence. And even the uttering of United in Stormwind, literally, like, if I were to say that to Zeddy, I'm pretty sure that, like, it would awake some kind of, like, sleeper agent super soldier in his brain. He's gonna, like, go off and destroy a castle or something like that. Like, you can't say the 3 words United and you know what. And it elicits a very powerful emotion from people.
All of the good decks were quest decks
terrible.
and everything was about
I'm not saying it has anything to do with that. I'm saying that, like, those 3 expansions were probably, like, the lowest that I've enjoyed Hearthstone. Doom of the Tomb was definitely the worst. Baron's Priest was definitely second, and United Stormwind was kind of bad, but I still found a way to have fun with it. Doesn't matter about the rest of that. I'm just saying the expansions or the times in Hearthstone I didn't like. Horrid bias. Do we think the StarCraft mini set will help or hurt the current state of the game? Here's my conspiracy theory. Here's my conspiracy theory about this expansion. All the great cards are in the mini set. And the reason why is because I really feel like this mini set needs to hit. Because number 1, it's a crossover. Number 2, it has the most amount of cards that we've ever seen in a mini set. There better be some fucking good ones in there, especially considering, like, how low impactful this metagame has felt because of that. So, like, this might be either a pro or a con of the mini set, depending on how exactly you look at it. But recently, I feel like there have been more cons from the mini set because we either have decks that feel like they have everything and don't have enough, and then when the mini set comes out, it's like, oh, this is what you were pushing for. This is why Dwarf Planet is a 10-mana card. That's what I feel like is going to be happening, is that, like, a lot of things are going to start making sense once we see the other half of the set. Because it's not even really a mini set. It's more of, like, another expansion damn near. Like, there are so many new cards that are coming this way because of this, so it's like, I don't know, man. My conspiracy theory is that all the good cards are in the mini set, and they really want this mini set to hit. Because, I don't know, I feel like people are just kind of drawn out over mini-sets recently. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I'm starting to feel like I would want all the cards released at once. Just so that way, there's lots of different ideas floating around that people are trying to solve for about 3 to 4 months. And then, like, maybe every, like, 2 weeks to a month, depending on how exactly the metagame is, then you can shift things around. That's what I think would do. That's what I would do. There's no Draenei in StarCraft, I'm pretty sure. Yes, but that doesn't mean that they wouldn't print Draenei cards in addition to whatever StarCraft cards they're going to do. Yo, Dark Nez coming in with the 5 months. Good to see you, man. Thank you for that. I'll put your name on the Yu-Gi-Oh wall once we get through this video. But yeah, I feel like there, just because there are no Draenei in StarCraft doesn't mean that they wouldn't add more Draenei cards in the space-themed expansion. It's a crossover. It's not just going to be only StarCraft cards, right? Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm a little bit on the copium here, but, like, the hero clashes, the hero factions that they're pushing, it might make a legitimate meta impact. Space Marine Murloc. I feel like either Zerg is an insane aggro archetype that eats the meta alive, or we see a resurgence in Skyla Mage on 4 classes with Protoss. I mean, who knows what those cards are going to look like. I can't speculate on cards I don't know.
You know, killing your opponent with these various quest-related things, and which were mostly
they can also
damage combos.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of different ways of implementing your 9.
But, you know, I just think that it has clearly been at a point for a while where you are either like just spewing an insane amount of stats into the board with things like Pain Warlock or, you know, like the Swarm Shaman decks, all of which were nerfed, or you know, like Dungar Druid or whatever. Like you're just kind of vomiting a ton of stats. There's no back and forth, right? It's I just throw everything at you, and you kill it or you don't, or I just kill you in a single turn. You know, are a huge percentage of what's happening in the gameplay there.
This has been going on for quite a long time, in my opinion. I feel like this has been like the overshadowing problem that has been the reason why a lot of these decks, even though we nerf them, are just refusing to die out. Because the problem is we just create one gigantic swing turn where if you don't solve it, you're dead. It's over. Dungar Druid is a perfect example of this because the moment that the Unkillsy X comes out by turn 5 against aggro decks, what the fuck are you gonna do? There's quite literally nothing that you can do. Your win rate goes from maybe having a chance to literally 0%. We need more back and forth in Hearthstone, and we need more interactivity with Hearthstone, and we need decks to slow down, where if you're gonna do a bunch of vomit statting at once, it needs to be later in the game. Like, it's one thing for, like, Giants to be good, because, like, Molten Giant was more of an issue for Warlock than it was... Because, like... I kind of wanted Handlock to be a thing, and then Painlock just completely overshadowed that, you know what I mean? We need Mage Secrets? Please no. I do not want interactivity with minion combat and minions being on the field. That's the interactivity that we need. Interactivity does not necessarily mean I play this, I counter this. Interactivity could simply be a 3-3 trading, it could be a 3-4 trading into a 3-3 and keeping a 3-1 so it is still a tool that you can utilize. That is interactivity very basically. We need basic interactivity. We don't need specific interactivity. Because specific interactivity, like Objection, True Beetle exactly knew where I was going with this, cards like Objection are bullshit, and I don't want more cards like Objection. I want more cards like Piloted Shredder. Piloted Shredder used to be considered one of the most busted cards in the game, and now it's just like complete, like it's such a relic of the past. I want cards. I want my cards back. I want my Death Rattle minions. Damn it. Death Rattles are the best ones, man. They're the best minions. Devs give you bigger minions, many ways to deal damage, but a player's refusal for survival kick W. Just smork until one of them die. All right, so here's a design question for you guys: is the game that you design, or does the game become the game that you design, or does the game become whatever the player plays it as? There's not a correct or incorrect answer here. What does your game not become your game anymore if people play your game the way that you didn't intend it? A great example of this is Super Smash Bros. Melee. Wave dashing wasn't intended in the game, but now that people wave dash, it's a completely different game now. The way that you design it doesn't necessarily translate to how players are going to actually enjoy the game and how they choose to continue to play the game. This is why design is so interesting, because mistakes like that can happen, and you're like, well, we can't nerf it. It's already out. Like, this is the problem with older video games in terms of, like, you know, not being able to, like, change the broken stuff. But this is why, like, this is why video games can be very fascinating. The game isn't always what the designers design it to be. Sometimes the players could shock the designer. They nerfed it in every other Smash. Oh, okay, yeah, but that's because it wasn't
games
intended.
have a back and forth again, right? I want to see there be, like, I play a guy, you play a guy, and I decide whether I want to value trade rather than, like, every single minion that ever sees play having rush. You know? Like, that's one of the things about, like, you know, like minion combat, like tension, board tension, the decision of do I go face or do I trade isn't interesting if, like, you know, rush is such an easily accessible mechanic because you just kill their guy and then go face next turn if your guy's still around.
Another issue that I actually do have is cards with keywords just being... Rush is good. Rush and Lifesteal is insanely good. Taunt and Divine Shield is insanely good. It feels like Blizzard prints these cards, and it's like, it needs a keyword. It needs Lifesteal. Let's go ahead and just put Rush on it. Fuck it. Like, there's a lot of these ideas where it's like, I get sick and tired of like fuck, man. Hampa Paladin is a great example of this. Plushie, dude. Plushie was a 3-mana, 3/2 with Divine Shield, Rush. And then they go and print the Starship piece as a 3/2 with, as a 3-mana, 3/2 with Divine Shield, with nothing on it. Shit, man, you give that thing Rush, it becomes insanely good. Plushie was it was literally one of the most illegal cards made this year. Like, it's whoa, man. One Amalgam Band is a great example of well-designed rush minion. Okay, so I don't want to say that it's a well-designed rush minion, but I think that One Amalgam Band is a great example of a well-designed keyword card. Keywords are really good. They're so good. But the thing about Amalgam Band is that you have to build around its restriction in order to get that payoff. Nowadays, play weapon on 4. Your lifesteal minions have +2/+2. Like hell, man. Mistakes can happen. You gotta learn with them and not repeat them in the future. I feel like Blizzard, design-wise, with Hearthstone, their biggest issue, and the issue that always seems to be arising, is that they always feel like the cards that they're going to be released are going to be too slow, so they make them turbo broken because it's easier to tone down than it is to tone up. But in that same vein, if you play it too safe, and you make a card too powerful, and it's still really good even after you nerf it, it says a lot about the card originally, and your design philosophy, and what you think is good and not good.
So, I think that, again, I don't think that this is a problem of the latest set, right? I think the latest set is the set that is the closest to getting it right in a long time in Hearthstone, because again, you know, like the stuff that things like starships do, and I love the starship mechanic, by the way. I think it's fantastic. You obviously have lots of kind of frustrating play patterns that do exist from the decks that actually play starships right now, that are like, you know, gaining 8 million armor and things, because that is the sort of thing your deck needs to do in a world where people are exploding you.
That's the
with
environment
asteroids or with, you know.
This is survival of the fittest, dude. Like, if you're getting OTK'd, you need to play armor, and the armor options are there, so the classes that can use it are gonna use it.
Copied burn spells from Lanessa or whatever. No longer copied things from Sonya, but that's only as of like a couple of days ago. And there's no like, hey, I'm going to build up to actually like launching this and trying to use it as a thing. It's mostly I'm just trying to use it to stay alive, or I'm trying to use it to kill you in one turn with Biopod or whatever. So yeah, I would love to see Hearthstone with its next patch, its next mini set, maybe even just the next rotation. Maybe we're too far gone to be able to make enough changes reasonably to the card pool that exists for the game to kind of reach a state that I think is healthy.
I've been saying this literally since the beginning of the Great Dark Beyond, that if these cards don't hit, the rotation's the only thing that's going to save us, and it's hilarious how I keep being proven correct over and over and over and over again, and time after time after time. The only thing that's going to save us right now is not nerfs. It's not going to be another patch. It's not going to be making okay, another issue that we'll talk about here in a second. But we don't need to be making current cards that are going to be surviving rotation that much worse, unless they are going to be a problem going into the next expansion. There are a lot of archetypes and cards and like Titans, Odins, and Boom Bosses that are still around that are just cards that need to be gone. Hell yeah, another great example. Like, there are like just think of a card in the past year that has been annoying the fuck out of you, and then ask yourself, is it rotating soon? Odds are the answer is yes.
Until, like, you know, we have huge swaths of cards go away, right? But I am...
Rotation comes, I complain about something else, the cycle never ends. Hey, man, that's card gamers.
Because...
Hey, man, I have a king. I play an ace. Nerf the ace. The ace is unfair. I had a king. I should have won. Card gamers in a fucking nutshell.
like look at just not only just the recent balance decisions, right? Like not nerfing Ethereal Oracle, but look at Bob, right?
Oh, right. So before he talks about Bob, another reason why they probably don't want to nerf Oracle is because if they nerf Oracle now, Oracle may not be good later. Hearthstone knows, or at least hopefully knows, what the new meta is going to be when rotation happens. And if they don't know, that's a whole other problem and a whole other issue we should talk about later. But it's like, you want the card to be good in the future, right? You want the card to be decent. Instead of just, you have to kill it now because it's bad now, and then rotation happens, the card's unplayable. That might be another issue that they have with like trying to like nerf cards like Oracle and nerfing cards of this expansion heavily, because they really want these cards into the next expansion and the next rotation to actually be good. So yeah, that's another problem.
We're in this really weird place where, like, coming into the set
module
of the Great Dark Beyond, there was this decision to nerf all these cards, which, you know, like,
they know the cards,
put
obviously
pressure on like trying to build to a powerful thing like a starship. You know, they nerfed Yogg, they nerfed Reska, and then they printed Bob.
They definitely Aramean. They definitely design cards a year in advance. Like that. I know what you're trying to say, but like that's actually what happens. They create cards like a year or like a year and a half in advance, and they have cards that they don't necessarily like. They have ideas that they've been sitting on. Like Odin was a great example of this. They didn't make Odin until they thought it was time for Odin. They have a lot of cards that probably like have been around for like 5 years, but they just don't have a way of putting them into a set that feels right. They have lots of cards, but then that's where balance comes into play. So,
like, trying to build to a powerful thing like a starship, you know, they nerfed Yogg, they nerfed Reska, and then they printed Bob. And obviously the effect of Bob, of taking your opponent's minion and putting it into your hand, is not as powerful as taking control of it and immediately have it in the board. Not even close to that, right? But it is also a much cheaper card that is a neutral, that can go into any deck. And I think that one of the things that has been frustrating over the past, you know, year or so, or more,
minions being stolen from
in
you,
Hearthstone,
cards being
is
taken
that
from you.
It is difficult to feel like your minion's text matters if it doesn't have an effect right away. And this is something that, like, you know, in Magic,
this has actually kind of been a problem for like the past 2 years of Hearthstone. Battle cries being significantly better than death rattles.
We call like the you know, the Goblin Guide or Titan problem from many years ago, which is that if your creature, if your minion, you know, isn't either hyper efficient and pressure your opponent and kill them before they can do anything, or have some massive effect when it comes into play immediately, it's irrelevant, right? Like, what good death rattle minions exist? And again, outside of like Dungar that puts all of them in play at once, what good like death rattle minions have been played, you know, in the past year and a half, right? Some of that is attributable to the power level of one-turn kill decks, whether they are things like Linessa, whether they're things like
Dreadhound's a rush card, not a death rattle. Get the fuck out of here.
Kind of metagame tyrant for however long. Things like you know, whatever, like the one-turn kill / combo decks, and then also things like Reno or Yogg or Reska and now Bob. All of these things kind of make the text on your cards irrelevant, right? And like Death Rattle, I think, is one of the cool, like, hey, I'm building to a thing style of sort of strategies that exist.
It's amazing how I just
like, I'm going to try to avoid, you know, like, play a slightly less efficient pressure minion, but it's harder for you to kill. That's just not really a thing outside of like really, really, you know, extreme strategies like Dungar or Elise.
And this is why I still hate Reno, by the way. Because the fundamental principle of Reno is that card text doesn't matter. Like, what good are my cards that I play if literally every single time I play them, their effect is invalidated? Like, I feel like Bob was made because a lot of these mind control stuff and like these interactive, like, there's gonna need to be an answer for starships, right? That, I feel like, is the reason why Bob was made, is because he is an answer to a starship that's, like, very menacing that you can't afford to kill, and maybe there's no, like, you know, card that, like, can silence it or something like that. But, like, that's the reason why Bob is existing. Because Blizzard is saying, or at least telling us through its design, is that we want interactivity through cards that invalidate card text. No more Reno whining, bro. I will always complain about Reno. It's never been about how powerful the card is. It's always been how bullshit the effect is. I don't care. Highlander decks, you could have an opinion on them on whether or not they're consistent or whether or not they're inconsistent. The duplicate versus non-duplicate consistency argument that everyone has. But my complaint about Reno has always been the effect is bullshit. It just is bullshit. Yogg was another great example. Zero mana mind control. Like, these cards are bullshit, and if you disagree with them, it's like, then you are the person who is fucking abusing it. Like, there you go. That's my take on that. If you don't hate Reno, you were the fucker playing Reno. And that's not necessarily, you know, like, I don't necessarily blame you for that, but that's the fucking truth. If you hated Reno, you almost never wanted to play it, and if you liked Reno, you were the fucker that was getting rid of, you know, like, those boards and shit. So...
or whatever.
The effect is bullshit, though, no matter how you look at it.
It's so easy to deal with any individual one thing with something like a Yogg, or, you know, now Reno's been nerfed, and Reno was kind of the epitome of this, of like, it didn't matter what you did prior to this point. And I am someone who liked Reno more than most, right? Like, I actually think that the Highlander mechanic is a cool one.
Okay, all right, guys. It's time to cancel Kibler. He finally made an opinion that I disagree with. Oh man, the video is completely irrelevant. His opinion is biased and nitpicking. What else? What else do we say in this circumstance? Yeah, cancel him on Twitter.
Though I do think that like, the pinnacle of Highlander in every single class being everything.
Okay, alright. It's either Reno or Zarimi, and I know which one is more fun. This is just the problem with priest archetypes. If that's what fun is, man.
To this point in the game didn't matter. Maybe not the best design when you're trying to have interactive games. But yeah, it is very odd to me that you would sort of take the stance of, we want to preemptively nerf Yogg and Reno coming into this Starship metagame.
Okay, I have to say this. The only fun priest cards are the weird epics that do weird things. So like Banana Priest, Stars Align, to a lesser extent Automatons. That's how I have fun in priest. But all the other options,
But yeah, it is very odd to me that you would sort of take the stance
Toch is a
of,
cool
we want
card.
to preemptively nerf Yogg and
42.
Reno coming into this Starship metagame.
Yo, what's going on, Dino? Good to see you.
Well, yeah, it wasn't even, it's Yogg and Reska and then Reno afterwards. And then you print Bob. Like, I was playing a game the other day, and granted, again, like, I don't make claims that, like, necessarily all the decks that I play are, like, even intended to be competitive. But, like, I was playing an Amalgam deck, and I had gotten a copy of my Amalgam, and, like, had two Amalgams that had, like, you know, like Rush and Cleave and Poisonous. I'm going to say Death Touch. My streams are crossing because I keep making analogies to Magic. And, you know, like, it was this long, interesting game where, like, you know, at the end of the game, like, my opponent, it was like they're playing Rogue, and they had, like, you know, they played, like, a Rexar, but, like, I had no cards in my deck. So every turn I was drawing an Amalgam that's killing all their stuff. And then they just played Bob and stole my guy. And then they shadow stepped it and stole the other copy, and I'm like,
oh, wait.
Cool.
So is this a Bob problem, or is this a shadow step problem? Ooh, let's see what Chad has to say about this.
Cool. I'm glad I bothered trying, right? And, like, it's not to say that I don't think there should be anything to interact with these.
It's the Grifta problem. There we go.
Like, that's not all it does, right? The card is like a Frost Nova on a body. It's having this kind of incidental effect of ruin the thing that you've tried to build up this entire game, along with these other effects. You know, it's not just that in isolation, it's that it is a neutral that has all this other modality and is this thing. In the context of making balance changes to protect investment in long-term plans, such as, you know, nerfing Yogg, nerfing Reska, and nerfing Reno.
So that's actually something that's kind of funny. Is that, like, let me hear him say it again.
It's that it is a neutral that has all this other modality.
Oh wait, yeah. What I was gonna say is that the funny thing about Bob is that he's literally just using Battlegrounds mechanics, and they brought it into Hearthstone. And what you do in Battlegrounds is freeze the board, take a minion, buy it for gold. The refresh is, I don't really know. Okay, so you re-roll and you get a minion for doing that, and then there's getting a triple. Like, it makes sense in that context, but then when you put it in the context of standard, it's like, wait a minute, stealing a minion, freezing. These things are really fucking good. Let me explain. Well, I can feel boring to play vanilla minions if everyone is super and no one is. Having some vanilla minions that can contract to the presumed cost of having text and benefit you for sacrificing an effect for more stats is fun in the metagame as a whole. Disagree for the following reasons. So here's why vanilla stats will never be good. Is because why would I play a Yeti when Hearthstone creates Yeti cards that literally have the same stats that also have an ability? Vanilla cards are not meant to be meta relevant. Vanilla cards are meant to actually encourage newer players to understand what makes a good and a bad card. To say that textless vanilla minions should be playable at top legend, the only way that's ever going to be good is if it's like, the only way that's going to be good is if like I'm trying to think of like dude, 4 mana 7/7s aren't even good anymore. Like shit, like vanilla stat, like there's just too much effective removal, and then you could argue that oh, there's too much effective removal and stuff like that. If they made a 4 mana 7, dude, if they made a 4 mana 6/7, it would not see play. It would not see play. It just wouldn't. 4 mana 7/7s barely saw play. Like vanilla stats don't matter because removal is just so aplenty, and if vanilla stats become the way to play, then everyone's just gonna stat bomb. A vanilla minion should never have the same stats as the minion with text. No, not necessarily. Because the ability of the card could outweigh the stats. So, like, case in point, there's a 4 mana 5/6 dragon that used to exist that gave your opponent 2 coins. It never saw play because you never wanted to do that. We're making a lot of general assumptions on how cards should and should not be. And the general idea whenever designing anything, you don't give a fuck about balance. You give a fuck about how fun the card is. If all you're doing is obsessing about how balanced the game is, you're taking the fun and the excitement out of it, and you're just trying to make a card. You're just trying to make another face card deck. You know what I mean? Magic the Gathering has a 5 mana 10/10. Yeah, because you can't compare Magic to Hearthstone in that degree. Magic has a mana system that you need to ramp up, and Hearthstone has a mana system that ramps up every single turn. They're uncomparable. Vanilla stats and Magic can work for different reasons.
Just to protect investment in long-term plans, such as nerfing Yogg, nerfing Reska, nerfing Reno. It blows my mind that we have the philosophy of one, and then the design decision, at least the stated philosophy of one, and then the design decision of the other, which is the same perspective I have on Ethereal Oracle, right? How are we saying that what we are trying to do is create a world in which there is more board tension and interactivity, and games are more minion-based, and then printing the best card as being something which has nothing to do with any of that, and in fact encourages the exact opposite of it, and not nerfing it when we have the opportunity to?
So the biggest issue that I feel like is happening here is the definition of what interactivity means from the designers. Because it seems like with all these mind control mechanics and with all of these ways of just like completely like just taking a minion and invalidating your opponent's game plan, that seems to be what Blizzard is defining as interactivity between players. Hey, you could just take the minion if it becomes too big. But the issue with that kind of mechanic is that, well, then what's the point of ever playing a minion if my opponent is just going to take it? It's one of the reasons why I hit the grift of mind control so much, dude. Like, I play my big starship, it has taunt, haha, you have to deal with the taunt, and they mind controlled it, and they're dealing with me for 13, and I lost. Oh, man. Well, I helped my opponent out. This is why cards like decks like Hound Hunter with the cleave and piercing is also not a good design philosophy in my opinion, because you're literally disincentivizing people from playing minions in a meta where playing minions is already really weak. The level the level of interactivity right now is, if anything, too high, because all you're doing to win games in a lot of circumstances is ignoring your opponent or using their one good thing to kill them. That is just like, that's not interactivity at that point. It's just bullshit. Interactivity should not be like, it should not be like Elucia levels of bullshit where if it happens, it automatically wins the game. Interactivity should be a slow dance of back and forth instead of a huge blowout almost 80 to 90% of games. Hearthstone has been shit for years. It was only good during 2014 and 2016. Completely fucking false. Best year of Hearthstone was 2018. Not even close. And if you don't agree with that, then you weren't part of the competitive circuit where it was really interesting to play in Hearthstone tournaments.
And it is clear it should be.
I cannot tell you how much fun I remember having during Kobolds and Catacombs and March of the Lich King, or not March of the Lich King, Frozen Throne. Best expansions.
For what reason? Right? So
mind control.
That's why my kind of long-term like confidence in Hearthstone right now is shaky, because I don't understand what's going on. I don't understand the design philosophy that is making these decisions happen. And it's not just a matter of like balance, right? It's like, what are we even doing here? How are we getting to a world where we have these stated goals and then making these choices, right?
Legit question.
So, I don't know what the best direction necessarily is. I don't know how to fix it, right? Because this is a matter of like years of accumulated like.
Dude, it's oh my god, I feel so validated. I keep saying I don't know how to fix it either. All I know is what I don't like. And this is why I feel so bad streaming Hearthstone sometimes, is because all I'm doing is complaining, but there's the only fix is rotation. The only fix to this problem is rotating these cards. That's it. We don't need a fucking sequel. We just need rotation. It's the only fix.
That, you know, you can't make go away by releasing a set that is the game that you want it to be when all those other sets still exist. And it's not easy to just, you know, like nerf every single thing down the road, because the next best thing pops up. And that's exactly what happened, right, with like the Ethereal Oracle decks of various kinds. It's like, okay, well, you nerfed this one. Now it's this other one that just does the same thing but was worse than the other thing.
We're playing whack-a-mole like we used to
in a different way.
Design
and it's not easy, right? I don't suggest that it is an easy job to get the game into a state that is healthy and fun, because that's the biggest issue is like, it's not a matter of balance, it's a matter of fun, right? Like, my argument isn't.
How many times did I say this during this video? Who gives a fuck about balance if the game is simply not fun? You don't make a balanced game, you make a fun game, and then you make the fun balanced. Hearthstone is simply not fun right now.
The game, whether or not the game is balanced. In fact, I think people's perception of like what is important in like game like live balancing is very often totally wrong, right? They're like, oh, all these classes have similar win rates, so we're in a good spot. You could have a metagame where every single class has the 50% win rate. There is no deck that is like, you know, any better than any other, like statistically, and is incredibly boring to play or incredibly non-interactive or whatever. And that metagame sucks, right? The important thing is not balance. The important thing is fun. And I feel like
you guys need to realize that if every deck had a 50% win rate into each other against every single archetype, if every single archetype was 50% into each other, it would literally just, you might as well flip a coin. How would I bring fun back? Rotation. That's the only thing that needs to happen. Rotate the cards that are frustrating, because we're not having fun with the new cards. We're lamenting about cards that have been a problem for the past year or two. That's the issue. We need rotation, and we need that's just really it. We just need a rotation. So yeah, dude, like, a balanced meta does not equal fun. And I feel like a lot of the armchair Reddit game designers out there would be, that's the goal, is 50% against everything. Absolutely not. You need matchups that disincentivize different decks. How are you going to make Control Warrior versus Freeze Mage 50-50? It's never going to happen. It's an unrealistic expectation. I don't think this game can ever be fun again. The Power Creeper's been really making this game boring. Goomba, that's literally what they're trying to fix. That's why everyone is being like really upset during this expansion, because they tried bringing down the power level and old archetypes are overshadowing that. That's why rotation is going to solve it. That's why rotation is the only way to fix this, because the goal is to... I said this earlier because someone was like, Lamau, just make good cards. They've been making good cards for so long, and they finally reached a breaking point. Power creep finally reached a breaking point in 2024 Hearthstone. They are literally trying to bring down the overall power, and you can't solve that in one expansion. I've been saying this for the past month. This game can be fun, But the problem is, it unfortunately is going to take time in order to correct, the lack for better word, the damage that has been done.
Like in many ways, because a lot of the design decisions that have been made, both with respect to initial design and with respect to actual balance.
They didn't design the set with 2023 in mind. They designed this set with 2025 in mind. They're not trying to mimic, dude, they're trying to change things. This is the focal point of where they're trying to change Hearthstone history. They're trying to make the decks less broken. They're trying to make it more minion-centric. It's literally what's happening. But they don't give a fuck about 2023 Hearthstone. People didn't like 2023 Hearthstone. They're thinking about 2025 Hearthstone now.
That have been made, both with respect to initial design and with respect to actual balance patches. Hearthstone has been missing the fun for a long time. And I want to see it get it back.
Agree.
So that's where I'm at. That's my thoughts on Hearthstone right now. Again, I'm not rage quitting Hearthstone. I am just expressing my frustration that a game that I have loved for a very long time is in a position now where I no longer love it, and I don't really feel like playing. And again, I'm not rage quitting Hearthstone. I'm taking time off for a wide variety of reasons. But yeah, I am hopeful at least that the people at Blizzard are receptive to this being a problem, and I am hopeful that they will find ways to solve that problem, and kind of get back to steering the ship in the right direction, as it were, because it has felt somewhat rudderless, at least with regard to, again,
so many Hearthstone
goals,
creators
action.
Quit this year,
and I hope in 2025, which is at this point pretty likely the next time I actually play Hearthstone, things are looking up rather than whatever it is they're looking like right now. So thanks for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your year and early 2025, because who knows if I'll see you until then. So thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. So,
like, I pretty much agree with, like, 95% of what was said in this video, and the 5% was, the only thing I disagreed with was when he said that I like Reno decks. So I pretty much agree with everything in this fucking video. And it's just like, the overall takeaway, the TLDR, or I guess the TLDV, or DW didn't watch, is balance isn't what is important. Fun is what is the most important thing whenever it comes to designing any video game, but especially in Hearthstone. This is just becoming a problem of the designers think that we want interactivity in one certain way of being able to completely invalidate what our opponent does, instead of having a back and forth dance. It is a blowout race, essentially, to do your explosive, like, okay, this is gonna sound really bad. We're not even playing Hearthstone, we're building bombs. Alright, we're all terrorists now. The whole point is to blow up your opponent as quickly as possible without killing yourself in the process. So, like, it's just like, and it's not just like OTK's doing this, it's every single deck where it's like, we're just trying to kill you, or we're trying to just, like, survive the explosion. You're either bombing or you're armoring up nowadays. So it's just like, if you don't like that kind of playstyle, then Hearthstone's not for you. And then that's like 80% of players don't really seem to want that, you know? Like, it's unfortunate that this is the circumstance that we're in right now, simply due to the fact that I feel like the designers are making interactive cards that are solely there for creating an answer to a balance issue, instead of just creating a fun, like, back and forth playing minions. Sometimes a minion sticks. You're not always going to have a clear, but it's only a 3-1, so it's not going to be that big of a fucking problem. There's just this, you need an answer or you die mentality in Hearthstone. And that's the overall problem. Turns are too explosive. Minion combat is there, but not as relevant. And whenever minion combat actually becomes good, you get mind controlled. We need interactivity to be minions trading into minions. And we need less mind control,
every channel that
less
play
explosive
Hearthstone
turns.
on Twitch for
OTKs
terrorism?
can be possible. OTKs can be possible. But if they're so consistent, if every single deck is just a combo deck, what's even the point? Last thing I'll say, balance is not what matters, fun is. Fun first, balance second in every single video game. It's not even up for conversation.